Okay, let's talk about adding virtual machines and moving them and some other aspects of this. One of the things you're going to do when you copy a VM, one of the things you have to do is make sure that it is truly unique. This can come down to making sure that the UUID of the hard drive is unique, that the MAC address of the VM is unique. So say, for example, you copy a VM. You have two essentially the same VM running in the same space. And if they're both exactly identical, they pop up on the same network with the same UUID, the same MAC address, things get confused. Um, so if you're going to move a VM, you're going to create a new directory for it. Copy all the important stuff, the VHD, the virtual machine definitions, start the VirtualBox manager, click the add menu, navigate to that folder, and select the definition file, open it. And it may ask you whether it's been copied or moved. If it's copied, tell it so. If it's been moved, that's probably a better option. Um, moving it will allow it, I think moving it will allow it to keep copying. If you tell it it's copied, it may change things. If you tell it it was moved, it may leave them the same. And anyway, in any case, there are also some guest additions on the virtual machine. Now, if you've worked in a VMware environment before and installed VMware tools on guest OS for VMware, guest additions on the virtual machine, these are functionally equivalent to, or analogous rather, not functionally equivalent, but analogous to VMware tools. It'll give you things like mouse pointer integration, shared folders, better support, more shared time synchronization, say essentially synchronizing to the host OS and using it as your time source. Other generic communications. One of the other things it gives us is shared folders and the ability to transfer files between the host computer and the VM with drag and drop. Shared folders will essentially take a directory rather, on the host machine, and the guest OS will treat it as another hard drive. So say, for example, and this is actually something I've done in the past with VMware Workstation. I had a specific kind of assignment that I needed to grade with a specific piece of software that I didn't know could coexist with another version of that same software. Rather than risk a version collision or things getting confused, what I did was spin up a VM whose sole purpose was to host that application. Then what I did was I created a directory on my local computer and set up sharing and passed the directory through to the guest OS so that whatever files I put in that directory on the host machine would appear in the guest OS so I could look at them in the appropriate version of the appropriate application and then grade them. So this is something I've literally done. That was kind of a roundabout version of application virtualization. A better way to have done that, if I had known to do it at the time, would have been something more like containerization or application virtualization, not literally spinning up an application to do that. Now, once we start talking about VMware, we're going to talk about VMware Unity. And VMware Unity will essentially allow you to spin up a VM, use its applications, and then kind of reach through with VMware to use the application as though it were on the host device, but while actually running in a guest OS. So this is another flavor of application virtualization. This is a concept we'll explore in more depth later. Now, the converse is true. If from the guest OS, if you put a file in that hard drive on the guest OS, it appears presto changeo in the directory on the host machine. As I said, you can also drag and drop. Literally drag it from one screen to another, from one desktop to another, and boom, it will copy that file from the host into the VM, and vice versa. Now, you can also, by default, this is enabled because this is a security hole. Imagine being able to, oh, I don't know, um, drag a password cracking tool from um, your guest PC, your host PC to your guest PC, bypassing things like um, host host antivirus, host firewall, meaning you're not reaching out to some site on the internet and downloading it through what the VM thinks of as its NIC, through what the VM has as its protocol stack. Uh, so unless your malware is looking for every new file, you could bypass things. So there is some real danger here. The other option, and particularly, I mean, for desktop virtualization, I could also see how this problem, how this ability could also lead to data exfiltration. You spin up a VM, you grab the person's home directory, or say, for example, you grab the password file and the shadow file off a Linux box. You find and grab the uh, the SAM file, the accounts and passwords hive in the Windows registry. You export it to another location, and then you attack it with a password cracker, whether John the Ripper or Offcrack or any of the others. You could, if you can exfiltrate core system files by dragging and dropping from the guest to the host, you can compromise things in a real hurry. Um, so I'm going to talk next about snapshots and adding and let's see, snapshots and adding and editing virtual hard disks. So we'll be right back with the next part of this. Thank you for your attention, and we'll keep going.